Through unforgiving lands, across the impossible expanse, a mirage calls, a distant oasis. We chase what most consider myth.
And then when we get there, we realize we can't mine anything with an ROCDS because it no longer fits in the 400i. And we go to pull out our space bike extremely carefully, which damages the ship. When we break out our X1 that was supposed to be designed for the ship. And then we realize the limitations of this beautiful vessel. Welcome to an interesting video. This is a little controversial, I know, but full disclosure, I think I own all 4 ships I'm targeting here. Although the Hammerhead's technically a loaner. Sorry, I spoiled that. But yeah, 400i. Holy cow, this ship is the ship that I want to have in a different model. So it's no surprise that I would actually consider the 400i more of a 4115P, so 415P. So the Explorer model of the 400 series is really my firm belief of what the 400i truly wants to be, and that's okay. I just wish there was a 425A as well. And inside that space bike area was a Gatling cannon that was retractable into the setup, and there was maybe a few decent-sized missiles or torps underneath the wings of that 425A. But back to reality, what do we have at the moment? So I'm going to try to keep this focused as best I can, not just dreams of what I could do to improve these ships. And I would say that some of the frustrations is the missed potential of the 400i. The 400i is a ship that is beautiful, just beautiful, especially the upper floor. The way the crew quarters are arranged next to each other, its fact that it has a bridge that can fit all 3 of the crew members is truly ahead of its time. It reminds me a lot of some of the benefits of the Odyssey series, the Odyssey ship, and some other ships that have this idea of having all the crew members being able to interact in the same location, the same area. There's enough space for them, all 3 of them, in the back area for a meal or for a get-together. Or if you have passengers, being able to keep an eye on them and be able to make sure they don't wander off through an airlock somewhere down below. Additionally, when you go down below, there is space to work. So I may have trash talked it a little bit on the ROCDS, but the elevator in the back is actually okay, except for the fact it will not fit a 400 ROCDS inside that back area, mainly due to the dang light bar on the top of the ROCDS. If that was retractable or removable, or you could just shoot it off, and then you could drive the ROCDS in there, it would actually be very nice. In fact, most of the Cyclone series, except for the MT and some of the other mounted weaponry on top, can fit, and they are very useful. The 400i to me is, yes, a bit of style over capability, but it is a nice ship. And at the end of the day, I think it's a big step up over the 300 series, which is truly a one-person ship. A friend of mine, I can remember Keta having to save him, and he had to sit on the bed of the 350R. And that was one awkward flight back to civilization. He was grateful for the ride, but at the same time, I just had to keep repeating, like, it's the only seat in the place aside from a toilet that's not the pilot seat. So the 400i does not have that issue. You can host people, you can have a rescue party, you can do other exciting things. And down the line, when scanners are more practical, and you have the capability to explore areas, I would be very curious to revisit the 400i, especially once they iron out its space bike situation. I think it will have a pad that can click in the space bike instead of having to have this finesse, fine artwork movement, or third party go into F4 of the advanced camera and lowering it down to the ground and angling it and all this. It's a real pain to use, especially on the weaponized X1s. So when there's a gun sticking out the front of the X1s, those 2 that are not the X1 velocity, being the base and the force, are quite painful to go into the ship they were designed to fit in. especially because they have such a long tail that barely fits inside that craft. So the vehicle elevator at the back is actually quite nice. One of the things I've always regretted not trying yet is putting a Fury back there. I'm pretty sure it'll fit. It won't be, the most pleasant ride in, but it would be very interesting. I should note the design once again, because this video is kind of focusing on a couple ships that kind of have missed opportunities and kind of design flaws in general that are in the game. And there was a serious design flaw where the rear bottom turret blocks easy access in and out of that elevator. That's if there was one flaw I want to pick on particularly well, is that you have the central staircase at the front, which would be fine if it wasn't for the fact you had a turret at the back blocking your access in and out of that elevator to most vehicles. So you have to kind of come in if the staircase is down, i.e., crew are entering and exiting and loading the ship and everything, and then you have the elevator down, and then you are trying to proceed in with any type of vehicle. It can be quite a painful experience coming in at like a 45-degree angle from the front of the ship towards the elevator and kind of angling in. Can these things be done? Yes, but they're missed opportunities, and every step of the way that you make it slightly more difficult is that much more you have to explain to a crew member that's not thoroughly briefed on a ship. So, with that out of the way, that's the 400i, missed potential, beautiful ship. Number 2 is my beloved, one of my daily drivers, the Constellation Phoenix. The Connie Phoenix was designed by Josh Coons, and in his words, to make it as baller as possible. He took inspiration from Eurorail style bullet trains. He took inspiration from different high-end types of woodwork from very luxurious places, and he created something beautiful. And he took some cues from the original Phoenix, but he did expand the ship greatly in width, took some height as well. He had to change the missile layout because there was missiles pointing into the master bedroom. That was less than ideal. And fun little side note, inside the straight ahead in this picture, in that fish tank, is the Phoenix MK1 low poly model broken in half sitting at the base of that fish tank. Little Easter egg for you. Right behind that fish tank is one of the areas that's the biggest lost potential of the entirety of StarCitizen currently. The need for a dang hot tub, due to the fact it was advertised as having one, has created this dead space that is absolutely useless. Not only can you not use the hot tub, which, yes, sure, eventually it'll get the pass and it'll be added, whatever, but do we need it? The answer is no. In my position, I believe that there should be an executive washroom in that area. About half that space should be taken up by an executive washroom with a two-player jacuzzi. So the idea is that the hot tub is now re-envisioned to be this this Oasis-style, jacuzzi-style, sit-in for 1 to 2 people jacuzzi bathtub. So an oversized one. And then all of a sudden you can put in a vanity with 2 sinks and also a small stall for a toilet. And now all of a sudden you have a nice executive bathroom. One of the first we have in the game outside of suites on the 890. And that would be a huge step forward because that would take away one of the chief complaints of the anti-Phoenix crowd, that there is no restroom for the VIPs. And also, it would give you half that space back for something else the Phoenix badly needs, a docking collar. Suddenly now you'd have space to put a docking collar in with a collapsible ladder or staircase, ideally, I can dream, that would lead down to the ground. Now, there is some geometric issues on the outside of the ship, and I'm putting it mildly with that type of concept. But the fact a docking collar could even be there with or without any exterior access outside of a docking is welcome. So, one of the biggest examples of missed potential and design flaws is the Phoenix, and it's in particular the area around that hot tub being wasted, because it could solve 2 of the major issues: the lack of a docking collar, the lack of an executive washroom. Currently, the crew does have a restroom, but it's a small little tower shoilet type thing, and I'm using that word on purpose, where it's a shower slash toilet that could be expanded and contracted into the same space. It's extremely small. It's in the crew area. It's less than VIP or baller, as Coons would say. But I think he would agree that some of the design flaws are currently in that room. I feel like he was bound to the requirements of the space. And I think it kind of speaks volumes when you go in there and you open up a shield module on that wall back there. And literally, it's in the area where people are in a hot tub. Is two like high voltage modules that operate the ship, hidden behind some doors. It just doesn't seem very like that was ever intended to be that way. I feel like you kind of were forced to put everything you could fit into different places. Missed potential. This will hopefully be solved in a pass. Whether it's my ideas or someone else's, that's fine. It's just a matter of this ship badly needs just a little bit of a touch here and there to really make it good. And while I'm at it, its PDS still does not function, mainly because PDSs do not exist in the game yet. But once they do, this ship, with or without the fixes to its VIP capabilities, may suddenly have a huge resurgence. Having a PDS turret on such a small vessel is an incredible benefit, and there is nothing else like it in its weight class. Having a PDS turret on a ship this small is really interesting, and it could create a lot of potential for this ship to kind of act as a screening vessel and all sorts of interesting things. That I really, it's hard to even put together the paperwork in my brain about how that would really look. You got to remember, ships like an entire Idris can have 4 PDSs. You know, ships like the Liberator have 2. So it's also a question of, is there different size PDSs? I'm sure we'll find out eventually. I've seen back and forth on this, and there's extremely limited actual documentation from CIG and speeches about what the PDS system is going to look like. We'll see. For those who don't know, PDS is a point defense system. It's an automated turret designed to take down missiles and torpedoes, and it may or may not be able to prioritize different targets based on what you need, and it may be able to target other ships, but it's extremely short range. It's mainly used in a defensive nature, mainly used by screening vessels or the ship itself to defend itself. Okay, on to the third one. As I alluded to earlier, the Hammerhead is definitely a missed potential. In particular, the negative space, the intentional negative space that CIG added to the front of this ship, directly in the middle of this picture. There is a 2-story empty space you can see through the ship from the top to the bottom, just behind the bridge area. And it's where those convenient, nice little windows are that you can walk along the hallways. Windows are nice until you realize what you're sacrificing. So when the Hammerhead first came out, there was in the community, and the consensus on Spectrum at the time was, if you want to go defensive, you buy the Hammerhead. If you want to go offensive, you buy the Polaris. And, if you don't want a hangar, well, the Hammerhead's there. It's only $725 USD. It's actually slightly cheaper than the $750 USD Polaris. There's one problem with this. These two ships are in completely different worlds. The Hammerhead, in my opinion, should never have been at that price point. It should be at $550 USD. Then all of a sudden it makes a lot more sense. It is a very useful screening vessel for the fleet to get turrets in all directions facing outwards and protect the fleet, basically be a death sphere around it. And yes, turrets will need to get buffed over time, with master modes changing things a lot on when you can and can't be shielded and when you can be charged up to fight and such. Hammerhead's going to be a lot more vicious. But it'll never be at the level of a small capital class vessel like the Polaris. See, the problem is that empty space means there can't be big armories. There can't be a medical facility, even with a basic medical. There can't be these things that a ship that is not full of empty space can enjoy. On the Polaris, for example, you have every single, not every single capital service, because I'm sure somebody will point out the Idris has its shooting range, it's a shooting range and such. But there is a small brig on the Polaris. There's a small medical facility on the Polaris. There's a decent-sized armory on the Polaris. And the Hammerhead does not truly enjoy any of those. The Hammerhead has kind of sort of a nice break area, I'll call it, for its crew mess. It has sort of armory potential. It's not quite at the level of what the staging of all the different pieces, all the different parts, all those services put together can truly offer. And the number of habs is reasonable, but they're kind of just smashed in there. So out of all of them, I would say that the Hammerhead really experiences the fact that it was at a higher price point. A lot of people have a lot invested in it. The good news is they can still do a 25 USD upgrade for now anyway to CCU over to Polaris if they're really excited about that ship. And yes, I know some will never do it because they don't want the hangar, they don't want the cost of the size 10 torps, etc., etc. But and they actually do like the concept of the screening vessel, and hats off to you for being truly a good team player with your org, or if you just really, really don't like fighters. You park this thing over basically a jump town type gameplay when they're active, and you can clear the skies. Heck, this thing will take down an A2 in a heartbeat.
Until armor's physicalized and in.
But it has its limitations due to the limited services it offers, and I think it's really going to show those teeth when it's not in a fleet and it's trying to operate in Pyro with a small crew of personnel that are actual players. And that also goes doubly if we get back to agent smithing concepts where players can kind of teleport into an NPC. That means you're going to need NPC needs a place to stay, NPC needs food, NPC needs resources, NPC needs FPS kit, and then that player teleports in there in this cramped environment. That's the other thing that's a real missed potential about the Hammerhead, is that in order to give its guns, I suspect it's to give its guns a firing arc, aside from the rear gun that's got a terrible arc. I think that there's the 2 stories of area tend to be cramped, especially the second floor. You get up there, it feels a lot like you're in a Retaliator. The Retaliator has those crew habs that are like really squished in. They're like basically just a bed with a window above it type of thing, and that's it. The Hammerhead feels a lot like that when you're on the second floor. It feels like you're kind of cramped in. Not that bad, but for the size of the ship, it just doesn't have as much of that. And that's what I would say could have been remedied by that empty space, that intentional negative space, in the words of CIG, to be put there in the dead center. That's just empty, dead space, just for looks. So unfortunately, this is one of the few times I don't think the concepts look really, really worked out. That's so. Once again, for the record, I love most of the designs. I love most of the looks of these ships, and once in a while, there's one I don't agree with, and that's just how it is. But it created this lost potential. Unless the ship is expanded in size, unless the ship gets creative with some of its front area, I think is actually kind of interesting. Or it kind of feels like there's just unnecessarily large space there to make room for that large docking collar at the front. So I think there might be some room for them to work. And I want to give compliments here while I have a moment and mention that the bridge on this ship is actually on the bottom of the ship, towards the bottom of this picture, dead center. And the visibility out of that bridge is amazing. And I actually do enjoy having this ship as a loaner, because a lot of times when people talk about wanting to fly a capital class vessel or a true, large vessel, quasi-cap, all that type of category of ships, I bring them in here and I have them fly this and I tell them land it. I tell them go over to a different spot and try to scout their way through an asteroid belt with this thing without using the advanced camera. And this ship is highly effective at that type of work, because it gives them excellent visibility to learn how to land a large ship, to really get acquainted well with uneven terrain, trying to land and trying to navigate through different tight areas with good visibility. I want to give credit where credit is due. This is one of the few ships that really shines at that kind of secret sauce to really get somebody to be able to. It's a pilot ship, and that's pretty dang cool for a screening vessel. That is quite amazing at its job.
Area 18. 2949. Things were changing. could feel it. And it was Gatsby, at the center of it all.
How'd you get on Gatsby's list?
Gatsby's it.
The name on everybody's lips.
Hey, here's to us.
Here's to Gatsby!
And then everybody realized, hey, we're going to these exotic places with the 890 jump, and it might take a while to get between all these planetary systems. Because in this very video, there is many systems being shown that are outside of Stanton. And that's kind of a problem, because the ship only has 4 suites. And then the owner's suite. Or is that the captain's suite? I don't know. I guess it's whatever you decide it is. But after you've expended those 5 suites, no one else has a place to stay. So in the best possible terms, you have sleeping for 10 people in the actual beds with logout capacity, etc., players. Even if we could allow crashing on couches, so to speak, there's like these little, in the suites, there's like these little places. Even if you did that, maybe 1 more person each, so 15 max. And that's even if they allowed that, which they won't. The ship is designed for shorter range, maybe stretching at medium range kind of distances for VIP transit. Unless you consider like only a couple groups or couples of people that are VIPs. But the ship is not designed for that. The ship has a massive, like Olympic-sized swimming pool, and it has enough seating for restaurant touring. All these people that you see in the preview. So, if you're packing in 30, 40, 50 people, where do they all sleep? So either they go off to another ship. Is there a Genesis Starliner that follows around the 890? It's not seen in the video, but I guess practically that'd be the only real solution here. Unless they set up some type of restaging. I know that the 890 will need a pass because it doesn't allow paints currently, which is a real crime, unfortunately, because the thing desperately needs paint jobs. It is one of those ships that is a status symbol, a luxury, a accomplishment for if you purchase it in game. It's meant to be something special. And whether you buy it in game, buy it in the store, I'm not commenting on the price. It's one of those type of ships. But the missed opportunity here is that it doesn't have enough HABs to be used as an organizational retreat or org offices or something like that on some far-flung moon or asteroid, because it doesn't have enough beds, doesn't have enough storage and capacity in those suites. And I know that seems like an extravagant luxury, but it actually has a decent-sized meeting place behind the restaurant, which is quite nice, towards the front of the ship. And when you go past the restaurant, there's a nice little executive boardroom overlooking the main turret on the ship, which is quite nice. It also has a hangar on board. It also has a nice size elevator that can fit a tank. So, I mean, the ship has quite a lot going for it. And on the crew deck, that is the saving grace. The crew deck has a significant amount of realistically sized HABs for single players each that can operate between the hangar, medical with regeneration on a tier 2 medical bed, a combat bridge, and a makeshift armory that's in the hallways there. And then right behind that is the elevator that leads to the tank or to the Spartan vehicle or something like that. Or even you could have multiple small vehicles there. And there's space around the sides of that. As long as you're okay with them moving around, you can actually fit a few more vehicles in there. Pull them forward towards the shield generator. So, power plant, I should say. So it kind of presents this like interesting thing. Where does this ship fit? What is it trying to be? It's one of the better capital class group trainers. So if you're trying to imbue your team with processes, like landing on a ship with fighters, or particularly like nowadays with the Furies and the Fury MXs, you could have a whole little flight of Furies and a Fury MX or something supporting them, heading out of an 890 jump and then returning back on patrols and such. You can land a couple different ground vehicles. You could do both. You could have a lot of fun with this ship. But at the end of the day, when everyone needs to log off and go AFK or something like that, it's a weird ship. Additionally, I'm going to state the obvious. Its food processing capacities and drinks are not available yet, so you're staring at a full bar while you're dying of thirst. And that will be in the game eventually, of course, when it gets its pass. It is got a bit of a dated textures on some of the things, like if you go to the napkins in the restaurant, or if you go into the spa, some of the water effects are kind of there. Some patches are not in the pool. It's not the end of the, or in the other mini pool. It's like the big group jacuzzi. There's a few other things like privacy for people that are changing and such with the glass in that area. But in general, it's a ship I think that'll all get hit with the pass. But the big question mark is, will it get more beds? Will it get more suites? And that would mean they have to redesign parts of the ship. And that would take away some of that beautiful rotunda type area in the middle that's like 3 stories tall, that whole section in the middle with the sculpture and such. And while I'm at it, yes, I'm going to get that petty. The sculpture should be switchable. That should be a piece of flair. A lot like on the Phoenix, switching the conference table for a piano. I would love it if you could switch that sculpture for something more practical. So, I'm talking about like a kiosk or something like that with multiple info terminals for trade or for org work, for sign in, sign out. Basically kind of treat that like an org office kind of like type thing. Another suggestion that's been floated, shout out to you, Toast, for turning it into a medical facility. And I've heard that from other people in other capacities. I think she specifically said it was like a clinic. And I do agree with my friend Toast on that. That's a good one. I think in general, there is a lot to be said for the power of the 890. People view it as potential. And this is a video all about squandered potential. So you know how I feel. It's something that unfortunately is a side effect of the design. I think it was designed in a time period before the days when they did the numbers and they started formulating the whole short range, medium range, long range VIP missions and such. And it just doesn't have enough suites to really do the job. The Starliner, when it's finally done and over with, may actually have more suites, or at least as a modularization, be able to turn into more suites. And that's a much smaller ship. So, unless they scale it up dramatically, which they could. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's my thoughts. These are 4 ships that I really thought had wasted potential that were already in game, and they may be fixed completely in passes in the future. Who knows? Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you to my long-term subscribers for sticking around. What do you think? Do you think I'm a little off on these? Do you think I kind of drifted a bit? I tried to catch myself a few times, and this is one of the videos that's a little more edited than most because I'm trying to check my own biases and less about my opinion and more about what's good for the player, and trying to once again offer options that are both in combat and not so combat, like industrial type options, VIP transport mission type options, people that are into hauling. I'm trying to meet all of those when I try to think of these missed potentials. And these are certainly not the only ships. I could do an entire video about what we should really do with the Gladiator, for example. I could do an entire video about what in the world is going on with the 600i series, and is it really going to be fixed by the designs? Like, for example, the 600i Explorer is going to be doing great, but what about the touring, and where really does that fit into the lineup? So yeah, a lot of thoughts, but these are the 4 I picked. Once again, thank you for sticking around. Thank them long-term subscribers. Again, I can't say it enough. Thank you for sticking around. Greatly appreciate you being on the ride with me. Take care.